Do it. Now is a better time than ever to figure out how Rose of Dawn thinks that ContraPoints is coping. All right. A response to a response.
I've been making YouTube videos fairly consistently now for over 2 years. It's been a wholly rewarding experience, particularly as my channel exploded in popularity over the last year to a level I never expected. I found many mentors and made friends with people who I've looked up to for the longest time. Now, with a sudden surge in my status, it's only natural that I attract my own fair share of critics, and while
ContraPoints is hot, Stalin. I don't get trans women who just bully and belittle other trans women. Yeah, same. Neither the fuck do I. It's internalized transphobia and self-hatred mainly. They're taking out their emotional shit on you is what they do.
that's certainly been the case with me, at the same time I've also been able to avoid YouTube drama, something
And you know, like Contra pointed out in the video, like people like Blair White and people like Rose of Dawn, her fucking daughter or whatever, their whole thing is like, you're not a real trans woman. This is why they hate us. It's your fault. You're the reason why transphobia exists. When really, no, honey, you're victim blaming.
same time, I've also been able to avoid YouTube drama, something common with most, if not all, channels that gain some sort of following. This is particularly surprising given the type of content I make, which is political in nature and heavily critical of an ideology coming from the so-called transgender community. Frankly,
So-called. That's all you need to know. Like, the fact that she said so-called is like all you need to know.
I'd rather avoid the mudslinging and sniping of YouTube drama as much as possible, as I'd rather focus my time and energy on content and issues that I find personally interesting. Times are changing though, and recently I've started to gain the attention of content creators who command a significantly larger audience than I do. As an example,
Not this bitch. I have like 16 subscribers so far.
Kat Blaque, one of the more influential trans creators on this platform, recently responded to a video I made on the subject of femboys. I found her
So Kat Blaque's argument here is basically like, it's like when Slavoj Žižek turned to Jordan Peterson in their debate and was like, where are the postmodern neo-Marxists? Point to them. Name one. She's like, where are the trans activists? Point to them. Like, who are they? Like, she's pointing out the fact that these true scum fuckers just put out this straw man of a trans activist who's like not actually trans or whatever to illegitimize a whole swath of leftist trans people. I don't think anyone gets to tell anyone who they are. Agree. Agree. This is all based. It is very, very online discourse because it's Rose of Dawn and her cohorts just like fucking trying to make it look like we're not really trans people because they think that they're trying to suck up to the sisses. They're like, hey, we're the real ones. They're the fake ones. Men who are interested in trans women really don't make a huge distinction between a hyper-feminine trap and a trans woman. Yeah, but that's its own problem, Kat Blaque. Like, yeah, the issue is the idea that it's a trick or a foil, because that idea just leads to us not being men. Or not being women. That was the most funny. Someone should clip that. But I don't have an issue with a hyper feminine man describing themselves as some flavor of trans. Well, then they'd be women, right? Like, I also don't have an issue with them saying they're definitely not trans. Yeah, well then, yeah. There is no harm either way. But I haven't seen her femboy video, so
mostly respectful, if wildly off the mark, but I felt it was worth having a discussion on the points she raised, and as a result I made a video which I was particularly proud of. I know Kat is unpopular with a lot of political YouTubers, especially those on the right, but I commend her for having a dialogue with me. At the least, there was no ill will, at least from what
I would debate you, Rose. I would. Come on, let's set it up. Like, debate me.
could see. No malice, and it wasn't like she misconstrued where I stand to an audience of hundreds upon thousands. Got to last Sunday, and I received a message from a friend of mine asking to check out the latest video by ContraPoints. For those who don't know, ContraPoints, or Natalie Wynn, is considered to be one of the largest trans YouTubers on the platform, second only to Blaire White in subscriber count. She's been regularly featured in mainstream news.
Yeah, second only to Blaire White, unfortunately. But I think we fixed that, didn't we? Did we solve that? ContraPoints Reddit. I think we fixed the ContraPoints is less subscribers than Blaire White problem, didn't we? Yeah, we did. They're equal now. As of 16 hours ago, they're equal now. Blaire White is gone.
Outlets heralded as a philosopher and intellectual challenging the alt-right. Her content is mostly a combination of performance art with philosophy discussion hidden within. From a person
Hidden within. It's not that hidden if you understand like subtext and narrative dialogue and stuff. Like
standpoint,
it's the most annoying thing about people who hate ContraPoints is people who say that she doesn't make arguments. It's like, no, you just have to actually be smart enough to get the argument she's making. Like,
videos don't appeal to me. The focus on skits and thinly veiled caricatures combined with long running times really aren't my thing.
it's a platonic dialogue is what she does in these types of videos. She puts one idea or ideology into one character and then an opposing one into another character, and she has them talk with a funnily Dave Rubin-esque quote-unquote centrist, moderate, classical liberal moderator who sides with the right-winger every time. That's her platonic dialogue thing that she does. It's not thinly veiled.
But she does command a significant audience, closely reaching almost 900,000 subscribers at the time this video goes up. Now, I was initially confused as to why I was asked to check out Contra's latest video, entitled Cringe. In her feature-length video, Contra
Maybe it's because you're cringe. Like, she literally talks about you in the video.
discusses the nature of morbid cringe, first focusing on examples of what she calls empathetic cringe and contemptuous cringe on American Idol, before diving into lolcow territory by referencing Christian West and Chandler. Roughly halfway through the video, though, her focus changes.
Doesn't Rose of Dawn have a video about Chris Chan? I'm streaming, bitch. Where is it? And like 1,000 videos on Jessica Yaniv. I'm looking. Is there like a yeah, Chris. Here it is. Pillars of the Community. I don't have to click on this to know that she probably clicked on that, or she probably made this video to say that Chris Chan isn't trans, right? It's pretty safe to say that that's what the video is about.
What she calls in-group cringe, and she makes the following statement.
And if you take around trans YouTube, a lot of the biggest creators on the platform have channels basically devoted to exactly this type of cringe reaction humilitainment.
So, who does she decide to focus on? Who are these large YouTubers that
I don't know, Rose.
dedicate themselves to humilitainment? Well, there's Calvin Garra, Blaire White, and, well...
By the way, you may want to check in on your understudy, Rose of Dawn.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack here.
Oh, is there?
In her 1 hour and 23-minute video, Contra talks at length about cringe from a seemingly neutral standpoint. But let's be clear, those 83 minutes of fabulous costumes and...
Wait a second, she just say that it's from a presumably neutral standpoint? What? ContraPoints obviously has an opinion she's pushing in the video. Like, she's obviously advancing ideas of her own. Like... she's not trying to be neutral.
In her 1 hour and 23-minute video, Contra talks at length about cringe from a seemingly neutral standpoint. But let's
She's not trying to be neutral.
be clear, those 83 minutes of fabulous costumes and academic language are an excuse to do what she accuses myself, Blair, Calvin and others of doing. Attacking
What?
trans people we don't like for our own personal gain.
Oh. She's twisting it in an idpol way. ContraPoints is the one attacking us. We're trans. Like, no, bitch. That obviously wasn't the point. Stop obfuscating. Her point was obviously that you punched down at people like fucking Christian and are like, oh, they're not real transes. I'm the real trans. Like, and ContraPoints doesn't do that. She didn't misgender you. Like, don't even try to draw this fucking equivalence with me, bitch. Like, Jesus.
Due to the excessive length of Contra's video, I won't be addressing every point she raised, nor will I focus on ridiculous skits that will make even Doug Walker blush. But Contra
What?
misrepresented me and my channel, so
Also, why does everybody act like her costumes and stuff is her trying to hide something? She's not trying to fucking hide something. She's trying to make a good video. Like,
audience
it's just production value. She's not trying to confuse you. You're just, like, knocked off your game because you're stupid. Like, catch up.
hundreds upon thousands, and it seems to be very telling why she did that. Before I go into detail on my issues with Contra, I want to clear up a few of the many misconceptions she made about my channel, as I'm aware this response video will no doubt attract some of her audience who are curious as to who Rose of Dawn is.
Oh, I'm real curious, babe.
Well, I started my channel in March of 2018, with a focus on discussing what I feel are issues from within the trans community.
She's 2015?
Who are curious as to who Rose of Dawn is. Well, I started my channel in March of 2018, with a
2018.
focused on discussing what I feel are issues from within the trans community. Contra
Like other trans people, for example.
acknowledged what is effectively my mission statement, but then strongly
Like the existence of non-binary people, for example.
implied that my channel is instead focused on cringe content, highlighting the name of my weekly series, Trans Stupid,
If that's not cringe content, I have no idea what is.
the Pillars of the Community video I made on Christian, and my coverage of Jessica Yaniv to paint me as someone who focuses on mockery rather than commentary. This, of course, is hugely disingenuous.
No, she's saying that your commentary is mockery. That's her critique, is that your commentary is nothing more than mockery.
The stories I cover can vary from individual outbursts,
Which is true, by the way.
media coverage, lawsuits, all the way to government policy. Simply pointing and laughing, which is what Contra heavily implies is not what I do. And if
But you do it. You
discussion on these
do
subjects
it.
is considered cringe to her, I would question why she doesn't point this critique at similar channels more aligned with her beliefs, as it's very telling that all three examples she provides only come from one particular outlook.
I don't know why that tweet was on the screen. Maybe because it somehow resembles the tweet that Contra made one time, where she was like, it was a benign ass tweet, dude. It was like the original one. I think this was the original one she got dogpiled on for. She felt like it was weird that she had to announce her pronouns in a space where it was just her and a bunch of cis girls, because it made her feel like she had to say like she, her, just to like get recognition as a girl amongst girls. And also like she felt like they were only saying it because she was there, and she felt like that was kind of unnecessary. And then she got fucking pounced on.
considered cringe to her, I would question why she doesn't point this critique at similar channels more aligned with her beliefs, as it's
Like who? Are you gonna mention Vosh? Please mention Vosh.
very telling that all three examples she provides only come from one particular outlook. Contra makes it very clear that she believes the highlighting of trans cringe is flat out wrong, but why does she feel so strongly about
Yeah, this tweet. Tweets like this. Yeah, these were them. Indeed.
it? Well, it can be summed up in one word. Cope.
Cope? What can be summed up in cope? Who's coping here, Rose?
Individual outbursts, media coverage, lawsuits, all the way to government policy. Simply pointing and laughing, which is what Contra heavily implies is not what I do. And if discussion on these subjects is considered cringe to her, I would question why she doesn't point this critique at similar channels more aligned with her beliefs. As
Discussions of the topic isn't what she's calling cringe. You make cringe content when you make fun of people you don't think are actually trans. God.
telling that all three examples she provides only come
We're
from
only 5 minutes in, guys. Like, I'm in for it tonight. Like,
one particular outlook. Contra makes it very clear that she believes the highlighting of trans cringe is flat out wrong, but why does she feel so strongly about it? Well,
maybe because the people that you're slurring as not trans are fucking trans. Like, that's the objection. You ever think of that? Like, you ever think your whole worldview is wrong? Like,
it can be summed up in one word. Cope.
cope. Okay. ContraPoints. Oh my god.
ContraPoints is someone who is a textbook definition of a gender radical. For those not familiar with this phrase, it can be summed up into 5 following
Find a gender radical in a textbook, please, someone.
points. A gender radical is someone who believes there are many genders.
Alright, let's pick these apart fucking one by one, dude. There are many genders. No, that is not the argument. The argument is that there is theoretically an infinite amount of genders. Because gender is a fucking spectrum, bitch. And there are only numbers of genders within a given cultural context. Like, you could say that there are 2 in our current culture. As long as you qualify that with broadly speaking, because, you know, whole bunch of people don't fucking fit into the binary. Sorry, like, the binary is an invention. Fucking non-binary rights. Hello. But biological sex is a construct. I actually do believe this. Based and bread pilled. Check my video for more on that topic. Smash the binary. Based and bread pilled. Fucking Stalin got someone else into the Discord. Based. Fuck yeah, we're growing our little cult following. Don't assume someone's gender. That's just something you should do if you want to be a fucking respectful person. I mean, if you're not sure, then ask for pronouns. But pronouns aren't genders. You might just be like, hey, trans woman? Like, if someone walked up to me and was like, are you a trans woman? I'd be like, yes, thank you for noticing me. Like, we're not gonna light on fire if you fucking say anything remotely edgy to us, you know? Accompanied by left-wing politics. Well, can't get much more base than that. The only one that is misrepresenting us really is this one, actually. I thought they were all gonna be like straw men, but yes, we actually get to have an argument.
Biological sex is a construct. Smash the binary. Don't assume someone's gender. And all of this is accompanied by left-wing politics.
Alright, Rose, tell me why any of that is wrong.
Contra easily fits into each of these definitions. Of course, if she believes she doesn't, then I welcome her to openly distance herself from any one of these points, although she's no doubt aware.
Wait, what does this tweet say? I feel like I'm pushing the limits of cis toleration and understanding as is by being so forward about the feminine penis aspect. She's right about this. But it seems like a lot of trans people want me to push it even further to hairy tops not on hormones can be women too, which yes, they can. Based. Why did she ever delete her Twitter? God damn it. I hate everyone who harassed her off Twitter. I hate. I want to just personally visit them and like smack them in the face in a video game. I hate them so much, dude. I can't. God, like she is such a ContraPoints is such a fucking gift from the trans heavens. Like she is so. I wouldn't exist without her, you know? Like we owe so much to her. And what do? We fucking make her have a mental breakdown. Like Jesus Christ, guys. We need to fucking fix our community. Anyway.
Consequences from her own fan base. As a gender radical, ContraPoints supports ideas such as self-identification and is firm.
See how based she is? And NBs thought she hated them. Like, god damn it.
Opposed to medical gatekeeping. These are issues I've discussed extensively in other videos, and to go into detail here would detract from this video. But radical trans and gender politics can have terrible results, so how do you address it?
Oh, this one really makes me mad. This one really pisses me off. Transgender prisoner who sexually assaulted inmates jailed for life. Yeah, the whole scare thing about trans women in women's prisons, they're just gonna rape somebody. It's no different from the bathroom argument, first of all. And if I'm gonna be really forward about something right now, I'm in a legal situation where I could actually, like, if I violate a certain thing, I might be sent to jail. So if I got sent, they would probably send me to a male prison because I'm not transitioned yet. And I would probably most definitely be fucking sexually assaulted in that situation. So trans women being put in men's prisons and then sexually assaulted by men is way bigger of a fucking issue than men acting like trans women so that they get put in women's prisons so that they can rape women. I just want to fucking make that really clear.
But radical trans and gender politics can have terrible results, so how do you address it? Maybe reevaluate your beliefs and policies? Well, that requires too much work. Alternatively,
You haven't even pointed out the problem with believing these things. Unless this is supposed to be it.
Shut down any debate and pretend it doesn't exist.
Rose of Dawn is a useful idiot for TERFs, dude. That's all she is to me at this point.
This is a hallmark of authoritarian regimes throughout history, which is where the term political correctness originates. Where the socialist or communist policy failed, they couldn't acknowledge it. It wasn't politically correct. That's the true definition of the phrase, not, as it's widely assumed, to be nice, inclusive, and polite.
Yeah, the only reason why people like you use it to refer to people who are just trying to be nice and polite and respectful is because you're trying to make them out to be a fucking authoritarian regime. The Maoist trans army is coming for you. Like, no.
Correctness is about refusing to acknowledge reality and the undeniable results of a bad policy. My content, along with Blaire, Calvin, and countless other trans content creators, highlight the flaws, failures, lies, and absurdities of radical gender politics. This is and always has been the core focus of my channel, and my content is much more difficult to dismiss than, say, a cis commentator talking about the same issues, because the label of transphobic bigot doesn't stick as easily on a trans person.
Yeah, but if you are a transphobic bigot and a trans person, it should.
Average viewer might go along with it if you label Sargon of Akkad as a transphobe, but place it on a trans person like Blaire immediately makes one question the assertion. Contra, on the other hand, avoids criticism of gender radical doctrine. The few times she's made comments questioning it have resulted in a harsh backlash, forcing her to step down. For example, her critique of the need to ask for pronouns at the end of August 2019 ended with her leaving Twitter after she was accused of prejudice against non-binary people. Contra has regularly been attacked by her own audience for airing a view that isn't quite kosher.
Yeah, the saddest part about the ContraPoints destruction by her own fan base arc is the part how they literally she was literally able to take the Nazis on Kiwi farms and the anti-SJWs like Sargon and the Nazis on 8chan. She was able to take them. But like she said, the thing that hurt the most was the fact that it was us, her fucking audience and supporters, and the people who were supposed to be on her fucking team who took her down. And that is why it had that big of an effect. It's because it was coming from her own side. And that's the saddest part about the entire thing to me.
And always issues an apology against the hate mob rallying against her. So what's the alternative if criticism is verboten? Well, she needs to cope. A cope is the action of dishonestly avoiding a debate you find yourself losing, which you know there to be valid concern.
But what debate is ContraPoints losing? Are you saying she's coping with the trans community? Just because she was smeared as NB-phobic?
But you want to conceal them anyway. An example of a modern cope is the narrative of the British Labour Party.
What?
Shortly after their recent election defeat, Labour's former leader, Jeremy Corbyn, proclaimed that Labour won the argument and that the public was on their side. Now, judging from the results of that election, this is clearly untrue, as it was Labour's worst defeat since the 1930s. But the Labour Party and their supporters dismiss this by pointing to their engagement on social media, or they attempt to take credit for the steps the British government are currently taking in the coronavirus pandemic, which is an unprecedented national emergency.
Yeah, I bet. I don't know if there's people who are like, reopen Britain, but I bet they're not Labour Party people, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I regret that I don't know enough about British politics to respond more to this point, but we're not really here for that. We're here to defend mommy.
Raising these points only serves as a deflection from the failures they don't want to address. A cope can be broken down into 5 steps, as seen in this slide. Number 1.
I'm gonna need a fucking bottle or 2 of this shit by the time this video is done. How to cope in 5 easy steps. Did she make all these graphics herself? She put so much effort into making bullshit videos, dude. Try to ward off. Wait, she's probably gonna read
Try to ward off even discussing the issue in the first place. Number 2. Deny the issue exists, downplay its significance or scope, find ways to explain it away as nothing out of the ordinary. Number 3. Try to reverse the issue back on the person who raises it. This is a you problem.
Wait a second. But it is a you problem that you're transphobe, like...
4. Accept the issue exists, but then try to point out some other casual factor which minimises and normalises the issue. Number 5. Finally, when all else fails, result to the complex and
What
claim...
is the complex? The issue is so irreducibly complex that we'll never understand it. Well, you could argue that's true for literally any given issue, dude.
The issue is so irreducibly complex.
Are you saying reopen America in my chat, dude? That's gross. Greasy. Trans Twitter is hella toxic? Well, left Twitter in general is divided. You know? But...
we'll never understand it. So now we all know what a cope is. Let's examine some of Contra's arguments and see
hold on. Let me speak right. Her invented definition for cope.
whether she falls into any of the aforementioned categories.
Let's see. I'm interested to find out, Rose.
Number 1. Try to ward off even discussing the issue in the first place. Almost all of Contra's segments on me falls directly into this category, as she directly and purposefully misrepresents me. As I mentioned earlier, she
No, she discussed the issue that she has with you. She just didn't bother to talk about your other bullshit content, like...
dismissed the idea that my channel looks into meaningful trans politics by focusing on the amount of videos I made on Jessica Yaniv. She was also...
yeah, which was way too the fuck many.
critical because I made a video on Chris Chan back in August last year, telling her audience I did so because Chris is a bad transgender.
There is a bad transgender in our midst. The bad transgender is not a real transgender like me.
Yeah, that's the effect that your content has, Rose, and Blair, and Calvin. It's all the same. It's all that.
I'm pretty tired of this.
Anyone who watched it would know that this wasn't the purpose of the video, but rather an in-depth look at a notable and highly chronicled internet personality to determine whether or not Chris is actually trans. And despite the abundance of Chris Chan related on...
How the fuck do you determine whether or not someone is quote-unquote actually trans, though? The only way you would even think that way is if your definition is so narrow that, like, a whole swath of people don't even fall into it. Like, you know? Like...
and content, this was the first video, as far as I know, to approach the subject in a sensitive manner. As a side note,
yeah, because you're the first cunt to think of doing that, Rose. It's your problem. Like... The tankies versus the anarchitties. We need to do an organized debate sometime. But I think you need more tankies in the server, Stalin, but...
understanding of the Chris Chan phenomenon is weak at best. For example, she compared Gino Samuel, the creator of an entire series chronicling Chris's history, to A-Log, one of the most notorious Chris Chan trolls. This
yeah, because A-Log basically was Chris Chan. Like, it was the type of thing where he was, like, becoming the subject. And, like...
it's resulted in some of Contra's fans targeting Gino's Patreon page, accusing him of being a cyberbully. Which
fuck yeah.
Gino responded to by pointing out that he regularly chats with Chris directly about the videos. On a more personal note, Contra misrepresents me again when she shows clips of me talking about transition and appearance before going on the attack. The context of these clips are completely lost in Contra's video. For example, the references to the seals in the transition video and the stream I had with Blair and Mars where I talked about appearance are not aimed at being shady to non-passers. Rather, I'm talking about the importance of not surrounding yourself in a hug box in your early transition and to be realistic in your appearance.
Oh
that
my
way, you
God, dude. Yeah, that's totally what you meant. Like, come on.
Honest steps to improve it. By misrepresenting me in this way, Contra was able to ward off actually acknowledging and discussing the problem in the first place, and this is a general reflection on her content, as she prefers not to discuss the negative results of her politics, as opposed to being honest and trying to...
No. The negative results of her politics.
Not to discuss...
And then she shows Jessica Yaniv. Jessica Yaniv is not a result of gender radicalism. She's just a pedophile, okay? Like, that's not our fault.
Negative results of her politics, as opposed to being honest and trying to fix them. Number 2. Deny the issues exist, downplay its significance or scope, find ways to explain it away as nothing out of the ordinary. Shortly before Contra starts her segment on me, she highlights Blair's video on trans predators. As you'd expect, Contra dismisses Blair's content as simply ways of making money, but take a look...
Well, at the end of the day, what are you all doing? Like,
at this joke that she plays several times.
Vanessa made a few more videos about Yaniv, rebranding herself as a kind of transsexual Chris Hansen, exposing transgender predators wherever she...
Yeah, I have no idea why Blair does this, but it is cringe. Like, that's the perfect fucking word for it. She is cringy when she does this Chris Transen thing.
Could find them.
Trans predators, with a siren and flashing imagery. By doing this, Contra is knowingly explaining away.
It's funny because I literally had the thought, and I posted this on my Snapchat. I was like, sorry, I'm reading chat. God damn it, my mind. I was like, why does Blair White think that she's the trans Chris Hansen or something? And then I watched the ContraPoints video, and that tweet is literally in it.
More videos about Yaniv.
Where she literally calls herself that. It was like, oh, Blair White is the meme. Like,
rebranding herself as a kind of transsexual Chris Hansen, exposing transgender predators wherever she could find them.
Trans predators, with a siren and flashing imagery. By doing this, Contra is knowingly explaining away and downplaying very real concerns that Blair has brought up in her videos. This is also reflected in Contra's dismissive.
How did she downplay real concerns? What do you mean? ContraPoints didn't say, like, oh, pedophilia isn't a big deal. Like, she didn't say that, dude. And that's not the point of ContraPoints' video. Rose of Dawn isn't even arguing with the points of the video. She's just trying to make Contra look disingenuous or something.
Chris Hansen, exposing transgender predators wherever she could find them.
Trans predators, with a siren and flashing imagery. By doing this, Contra is knowingly explaining away and downplaying very real concerns that Blair has brought up in her videos.
Yeah, because trans predators are not a real, valid concern. It's a fucking stereotype. And it would benefit both of us, in fact, all of us, Rose, Contra, Blair, me, if that stereotype went away. Like, that's what we're trying to do.
This is also reflected in Contra's dismissive comments on the amount of videos I've made covering Jessica Yaniv. She seems to make quite a bit of effort to be seen as condemning Yaniv in her video, so she's clearly aware of what he's being accused of. But by
see that? The he thing? The we can misgender people we don't like thing is part of the problem that she was pointing out with your content. And yet she continues to do it, dude.
Focusing on the number of videos, she seeks to downplay the significance of what Yaniv has done by painting it as obsessive. So I'd like to put a question to
if you don't think making, like, 18 videos in one person is obsessive, then, I don't know what is, girl.
ContraPoints. What is the correct amount of times one should talk about a trans predator? When
maybe once.
Women are raped by a trans woman who is allowed into a women's jail, when a student,
which, as I've already covered, is way less of a fucking issue than women who are trans getting raped because they get put in male prisons.
Officer with access to vulnerable people faces serious allegations of sexual misconduct, when a genital-obsessed racist can damage and end the careers of 12 immigrant women.
Yeah, the issue isn't that they're trans predators, the issue is that they're predators. When you lump in the trans part with that, and you do this policing the community thing, first of all, it's a cunt move, and second of all, you're advancing the stereotype I was just talking about, that trans women are just fucking pedophiles. It's not your job to catch pedophiles. Or maybe it is Blair's at this point, but...
How many videos is okay? The implication here is that the number of times to draw attention to a predator who is yet to face justice is 0, as to do so is to create cringe content. Number 3. This is a you problem. Of the 5 cope strategies, this is the one that is featured most prominently in Contra's video. Every allegation she makes against myself, Blair and Calvin can be thoroughly summarised as rejection. So where do I begin? Well, let's start with appearance. I previously mentioned how Contra misconstrued some of my transition quotes, which is something she weirdly focused on in a synthwave clip, the purpose of which isn't entirely clear to me. However, sometimes I do point out appearances, and part of Contra's...
Yeah, of course it's not entirely clear to you, because you're caught up in your own ego and you don't understand how you're being an asshole.
...is making it look unreasonable and weird for people to point out extremely non-passing trans people, or people who...
Sometimes the point isn't to pass.
...deliberately make sure they don't pass. Or...
Why is that your fucking business?
Zero effort, non-transitioning, non-binaries.
It doesn't take effort or a transition to fucking be non-binary.
It is not unreasonable because it's
What the fuck is going on, dude?
relevant. It's not unreasonable to be concerned when someone very obviously male wants to enter a women's changing room or win a women's sports contest.
She doesn't even want to be able to go into the girls' room, does she? Rose of Dawn doesn't want to be able to piss with other women. She doesn't. She wants to go in the men's room. Like, God, 15 minutes in and my brain collapsed in on itself.
These are the results.
We still have 14 minutes left, guys.
Contra's no gatekeeping policy, where a hairy, non-transitioning top is just as valid as any other woman.
Yes, in their gender.
Contra says
If this person identifies as a woman, they are then a woman. It's that simple.
everyone is valid. This is who you have to call she or be fired.
Yeah.
So no, it's not a me thing or a mean thing to point out that having no standards results in these people being women and getting a place on women's shortlists. It's notable that Contra doesn't want you looking at the inevitable, currently happening results of an open border.
Fuck do you mean by inevitable? Oh, the inevitable doom. The apocalypse will come. We'll accept people are valid in their gender identities, and then meteors will rain from the sky, and rape will just skyrocket across the globe. Like, what the fuck? What? Why am I...
to trans politics. However, Contra does make some person
Rose's audience probably doesn't even consider her a woman? Dude. Probably not. Let's be real.
comments on my own appearance. For example, she brings up my logo as how I want to present myself.
Well, Rose, who prefers to represent herself with this cartoon.
Yeah, your logo is a representation of yourself. Don't act like you're not presenting yourself this way.
Present myself.
Well, Rose, who prefers to represent herself with this cartoon.
Don't act like you're not presenting yourself this way when this is your logo, and that's the purpose of a logo, Rose. Like, you're getting ridiculous with this.
Okay.
This was an observation that was as interesting as it is incorrect. The logo in question was a piece of fan art that one of my viewers made for me. After sharing it with my followers online, as well as showing my friends outside the internet, it proved to be so popular that I just had to use it. Yes, it is.
Does that change the fact that it's your logo, though?
Flattering, but you can look at that picture and clearly recognize it as me. But this logo is not, and never has been, how I present myself. The vast
That's what a logo is.
majority of my content is filmed in front of a camera. This has always been a personal choice as I wanted everyone to see the woman making the content in front of them. I wear minimal makeup, and the only filter I ever use is to fix the lighting in post-production, which is needed when one uses Vegas Pro, as the picture can be too dark otherwise. I also use a photo of myself as my channel's thumbnail on YouTube, my Patreon page, and Twitter. Me, as you see me, is how I present myself. And this jab at my appearance and how I see myself is fascinating coming from ContraPoints. She is most famous for her varied costumes, heavy makeup, lighting, and filters, which she uses a variety of in every video she produces.
Yeah, she's an aesthetic goddess. Like...
In her latest Cringe video, she has 3 different costumes, each with heavy makeup. There's nothing wrong with this, she has a distinctive style, but it becomes a problem when she accuses me of presenting my logo as how I want to be seen, whilst she in turn looks nothing in reality like she does in her videos.
Are you really calling her a hypocrite? Because she said that you present yourself with a logo that makes you look way skinnier than you are, which you do. That is your logo, Rose. And then you say, oh, you point the finger back at her and you're like, you're misrepresenting yourself as well because you wear costumes in videos where you play characters. The fuck, dude? Like... If anybody is convinced by this, if anybody is fucking convinced by this video, I feel so bad, dude. I feel so bad. I feel like YouTubers like this, their audiences are just like revolving doors of 12-year-olds. Like when you're 12, you watch this shit, and then you get older, you're like, yeah, Rose of Dawn is kind of an idiot, isn't she? And then you get even older, and you're like, yeah, they're all dumb, aren't they? But then more 12-year-olds come and fill up the, like, it's a revolving door of fucking 14-year-old Ben Shapiro screechers. Like, that's who watches this and actually thinks it's like intellectually valid fucking content.
This is a clear projection here. Both Contra and myself have gone through facial feminization surgery. Despite the painful recovery, I've been thoroughly satisfied with the results I've achieved, and I've never felt better in my own appearance. Contra, on the other hand, has talked at length about how she hasn't been happy with hers.
I've been kind of depressed this past month.
Okay, but what? I really want to know why she's fucking bringing this up. I really want to know why she's talking about this personal shit. Like, what?
And I think part of it is that on a subconscious level, I think I was hoping that surgery would completely change my self-image and make me like myself. But it really hasn't. I mean, I'm happy with the results. I'd do it all again. But I still feel the way I felt before.
Now, I don't cake myself in makeup, filters, and elaborate dresses to disguise how I actually look. I might not look perfect.
What do you mean disguise how you actually look? YouTubers like this are so bad for the world. Like, not only fodder for the chuds, but it's really harmful to trans people trying to discover themselves. Yeah, it contributes to transphobia. And, we all know that transphobia can be internalized, and that can make transitioning really hard for people.
I certainly have flaws, but I'm confident enough in my appearance that I don't disguise it. I cannot say the same about her. And this leads into a more significant projection Contra makes, which is how we feel internally about the presentation of trans people in the public eye, and a focus on self-hate. Contra alleges that Calvin Garra projects his hatred of transgenders onto the public, implying he believes it is because of multi-gendered NBs that there is a dislike of trans people in society.
Multi-gendered NBs? Non-binary people are not all multi-gender. And yeah, that is what Calvin Garra does. Like,
she also accuses me and Blair,
Vanessa,
of presenting ourselves as the good trans, with Yaniv being the bad trans.
That was the point of your videos. I don't see any other point of making that content. You used to be into people like Blair White, yeah. Yeah, I used to be into people like Jordan Peterson, which was probably worse for me. But I'm not trying to play Oppression Olympics with you or anything, but yeah, I know what you mean.
All of this Contra clearly states as us projecting our insecurities onto the world, therefore being instantly dismissive of what our critiques actually are. This is an us problem, apparently. For clarity, no.
Wait a second. I'm kind of like, her voice is molding into my brain such that I can't make out what she's saying, dude. Like, what is she talking about now?
As the good trans, with Yaniv being the bad trans. All of this Contra clearly states as us projecting our insecurities onto the world, therefore being instantly dismissive of what our critiques actually are. This is an us problem, apparently.
Well, she's not dismissive of your critiques. I feel like she's answered your critiques as well.
For clarity, no. Transgenders or Jessica Yaniv aren't the reason why people may have a problem with trans people in general.
But you can't deny that making videos on them is gonna make people think that, especially in the way that you talk about it. Like, that's the point. And also, transgenders aren't a thing. This is just an NB, probably, you know? Like,
doesn't mean there's nothing worthwhile to critique here. In the case of a transgender, they push the narrative you don't need to have gender dysphoria in order to be trans.
Having gender dysphoria is not the same thing as being transgender, like Blair White conflated the last time we watched one of her videos.
the same people who push for medical organisations to demedicalise transsexualism, unaware or simply not caring about the impact this would have on the trans people who require specific treatments for their dysphoria, such as
No impact would be had on you. You can still get HRT in a society that accepts envies, dude.
or surgeries. They are listened to by those in influential positions to our detriment. So it's
No, they're not hurting you. They're not hurting you. Your understanding of yourself is just wrong in the sense that it causes you to not understand other people who are also trans. You're not trans because you're medically a woman. You're trans because you identify as a woman, Rose. That's that.
right to critique them. Likewise, Yaniv isn't an excuse for someone to dislike all trans people or generalise that we're all similar to him. But
you can't deny the fact that all those videos you made about her are gonna make people think that way.
Yaniv case, and why I talk about it so much, is that it's the end result of narratives that people like ContraPoints push. The infamous ball waxing case is a perfect example of radical gender ideology taken to its logical conclusion.
No. Stop trying to connect creepiness with gender radicalism. It's not, there's no thread there, babe. Like, yeah, lobster daddy.
The only criteria to being a woman is simply to define as such. Sex is a construct, after all, so Yaniv's genitals, to remain consistent with gender radical ideology, become female by definition. This was...
Yes. Yeah. Girl dick exists. You got one, and so do I. So, in fact, we all do. Blair White hasn't had bottom surgery yet. We all have girl dicks. Like, get over yourself.
How Yaniv was able to raise the cases in the first place. Ultimately, creators like myself highlight people like Yaniv as they take advantage of narratives pushed by the likes of ContraPoints, using loopholes and self-ID policies for personal protection. Contra doesn't have an...
Self-ID policies for personal protection? What the fuck are you talking about? Oh my god, for personal protection. No, we just want to fucking fix the world, and you're in our way. Like, get out of the way. Come on to our side of actual fucking trans rights, and not your bullshit turf rhetoric.
Honest answer to any of this, though. Instead, she accuses us of self-loathing. I've discussed the toxic narrative of self-loathing in the past. As a trans woman who is considered true scum, as someone who sits on the political right, such accusations come with the territory. I should make it clear that I started my transition back in 2010. Since then, I've had various medical procedures, including hormone replacement therapy, gender reassignment surgery, and facial feminization
I can't wait for my HRT, dude. I can't wait.
surgery. At this point, I consider myself fully transitioned. I feel no internal shame with who I am, and it's important to note by comparison,
Might you say that you don't have dysphoria anymore, Rose? Might you say that dysphoria is a temporary state? Might you say that being dysphoric is not the same as being trans? Perhaps? Like, that's what you're saying, kind of, right?
is still fairly early in her transition, which only began in earnest around 2 years ago. Transition is a big deal, and it's understandable that someone still in the early days will be having mixed, even negative, feelings about the process. This isn't a defense for her dishonesty by projecting onto me, but it could be an explanation.
What? Is she saying that ContraPoints is the one who hates herself? Is that the...
But the accusations of self-loathing, the way Contra stresses we are abused and stigmatized by society, feel very much like she's projecting her own insecurities onto us as a way of explaining our position.
No! She's able to understand herself in the context of a systemic problem. Just like I am, just like most of us on the left are, because we understand our problems are systemic and not individual. People like Rose of Dawn are apparently incapable of thinking about themselves in the context of the social systems that encompass our material world.
She's been very public with her own issues, even bringing them up in this very video. She openly mentions how cringing is a habit that makes her hate herself and projects this directly onto me. She talks about how all trans people are victims of harassment and hate. And yes, I'm sure the vast majority of trans people have indeed experienced some form of prejudice, but this doesn't mean our behaviours are controlled by it, or that we think less of ourselves as a result. It's a convenient tool to simply bat away any and all criticism we bring as being motivated by an internal disgust for ourselves. It gives the impression that there is one true way of thinking for a trans person, but based on her reaction, I'm not sure ContraPoints quite understands this. Number 4, accept the issue exists, but then try to point to
I just realized we're not done with her fucking cope list.
some other casual factor which minimises and normalises the issue. When discussing both Chris Chan and Yaniv, Contra brings up the issue of mental health. It's absolutely right to acknowledge Chris's autism, and in fact this is something many who follow him openly understands to give context to what he does. With Yaniv, however, it's a little less clear. Unlike Chris, Yaniv hasn't really discussed in public whether or not he has any diagnosed conditions. It may be the case that he does, but there could be other explanations for his behaviour. It could be a grift, or motivated by a fetish, or related.
A grift, dude? No, I think she's just a trans woman who's also a pedophile. I think it's that simple.
Racism, but bringing up the casual factor of mental health doesn't take away the issues which Yaniv brings up. Yaniv was able.
Do you really think Jessica Yaniv is smart enough to set up a grift? The grifter here is you, Rose.
Get people banned and censored because of the zero gatekeeping policies and the radical trans policies that activists push into Twitter. Yaniv's mental issues may have made him take the path, but radical trans activists
I'm honestly cringing every time she uses him for fucking trans women.
opened the door in the first place. As for the final cope, when all else fails, resort to the complex and claim the issue is so irreducibly complex we'll never understand it. Let's leave this as a placeholder. I've put forth criticism of Contra's politics having bad results, and that she avoids addressing them. Whilst I'm
Yeah, because people like Jessica Yaniv are not the result of having the correct view on gender. There's no connection between pedophilia and understanding gender identity. I'm sorry. She keeps bringing up Yaniv because Yaniv is just a fucking lolcow obsession to these people. Like, they're all... This is what they do, Stalin. This is what they do.
supposedly filled with self-hatred and appeasement for the right wing, I'm sure there are very, very complex reasons for Contra to ignore the problems brought forward by her beliefs. And I look forward to the 94-minute video explaining why we're bigots for not wanting this person as a women's representative.
Let me reiterate an earlier point I made.
Not wanting this person.
If this person identifies as a woman, then she is a woman. That's it. That's it.
As a women's representative. I've discussed the various cope mechanisms Contra raised in her video, but there's still more to discuss outside it, and it's quite relevant to the topic of her video, which is morbid curiosity. Now, Contra talks about what she perceives as a cringe obsession between myself and Jessica Yaniv, or Gino Samuel and Chris Chan. But right in plain sight is her own obsession with one particular online personality, who she still holds a grudge with to this day.
Vanessa.
Or Blair
White.
White. Let's use her actual name here. Since debating Blair back in 2017, Contra has had a notable dislike of Blair and her popularity, going so far as to create a thinly veiled parody of Blair known as Tiffany Tumbles.
Yeah, Tiffany is only loosely based on Blair White, though. Like, they're not the same person. It's not like Blair White stand-in. It's just the fact that Blair White is also a true scum. Like...
Contra denies that Tiffany is based on Blair, but the stark similarities haven't gone unnoticed.
The biggest clue for me that Tiffany was intended to be Blair is the way she repeatedly mentions that she isn't a victim.
Even though I'm trans, I refuse to be a victim. I'm not a victim. What?
Yeah, the whole I'm not a victim thing when we're all victims of transphobia.
I'm not a victim. I'm in complete control.
Contra's latest video ironically highlights her dislike for Blair even further. She repeatedly refers to Blair with the condescending nickname of Vanessa, or Vanessa LeBlanc, says she has inner beauty, unlike Blair.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Used a part of my transition video to snipe at her, makes a dig at Blair applying lip gloss, which is hypocritical considering the makeup Contra wears. She can't even talk about—
Oh my god, again, with the hypocrisy that just because she wears makeup in videos that are supposed to be theatrical, like, that's not hypocritical. Because it has nothing to do with what she's saying about you.
without bringing up Blair first. And it's notable how Contra's eyes light up when talking about Blair as opposed to me. Of course,
What do you mean?
Contra also
I wonder why that could be, like...
makes many spurious accusations against Blair in this video, the most serious of which is that Blair had no other motivation to make any content on Yaniv other than money, and not that Blair has concerns with what Yaniv has done. It's not that Yaniv is dangerous and radical trans politics enabled him, no.
No, she hasn't been enabled by radical trans politics. I don't approve of pedophiles.
Hatred or internalized trans
Of any fucking gender, like...
misogyny, or money grabbing, or bootlicking for Nazis, anything. Just stop looking at our failures, I suppose. It's not just that Contra is using cope strategies to dismiss legitimate arguments, but she has expressed it through her grudge against Blair. She critiques the
Grudge. As if...
amount of content.
Okay, so you have one trans girl who's right-wing, and another trans girl who's left-wing, and they are, like, as popular as each other, okay? Do you think they might talk about each other? Like, why wouldn't she fucking make videos or talk about Blair White in her videos? Like,
And she did
especially when Blair White is literally, like, a true scum, kind of like you, Rose.
not worth the attention, but she still returns to attack Blair and others over and over. Is this a way of making herself feel better, I wonder? Her video makes a clear argument that our motivation for content outside of money is simple: attack others and win over the right. But neither me nor Blair have made content to appease anybody. We make
Are you sure?
content with our own political leanings, and that in turn attracts our audiences. There's no need for us to make apologies for comments we make, or, as Contra tries to put it, say we're the good ones. We don't have to win over the right. We just say our thoughts clearly, and this is reflected in both our audiences. I've had everything from socialists to anarcho-capitalists, non-binary to gender criticals watch my content, and whilst it's clear each of these groups have topics they strongly disagree with me on, there are also points they do agree with. I've never had to capitulate to gain my audience, and it's arrogant to assume that's the case. By comparison, Contra has found herself the victim of her own followers on multiple occasions for expressing the wrong views or appearing alongside problematic people, and has felt the need to apologise each time.
I, like, kind of have, like, no, like, juice left in the tank for this anymore. I'm kind of just like, oh, like... It's been a torturous ride.
In this instance, who is doing the appeasement? I never made my content to feel better about myself. I started my channel because I was tired of not seeing a narrative evolve from a community that claims to represent me in which I felt I had no say on. From far-left policies being pushed in the name of trans rights, to predators taking advantage of self-ID, the threats to freedom of expression.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Predators taking advantage of self-ID has nothing to do with the policy of self-ID. It has to do with the fact that predators exist. And predators will take advantage of anything. Does Rose of Dawn think that we should just fucking, like... strip away every single thing that a pedophile might be able to take advantage of? Like, oh, we should just eliminate school because, you know, a pedophile might become a teacher and molest a kid. Like, let's just get rid of playgrounds, dude, because like honestly, like Jesus Christ, it's basically the argument.
Contra is free to disagree with me on all three of those topics, but by pushing cope, she dilutes my own content to a significant audience and paints me as a harasser. Considering her recent cancelling episodes over the last year, I frankly expected better from her. Now,
Oh yeah, because the right kind of got a little wet when ContraPoints said cancel culture is real. Like,
before I end this video, I'd like to make one more point on the most condescending line from Contra's video.
Rose, are you okay?
Well, thanks for asking. Actually, no, I'm not okay. And you're right.
well, you know what's funny is the fact that she immediately followed up on that comment by saying that no trans woman remotely in the public eye is okay, which she's kind of right about, guys, to be honest, but
Nothing to do with Jessica Yaniv or appeasing the right, as you might like to think. I actually experienced severe anxiety and distress, but I'm doing my best in this difficult period to get the mental health care I need, rather than misleading my audience to get a cheap takedown in a feature-length video. ContraPoints has an undeniably large channel.
do you really think that she was trying to get a cheap takedown on you? Or do you think that she's just calling you cringe because you are? Like,
raking in a high amount of cash and fans, but despite this, she's still unhappy. Of course, success doesn't equal good mental health, but I take issue with her projecting her own unhappiness onto myself and others, and using this as a cheap shot about her content. I'm always honest about my thoughts and my content, but it appears Contra is hiding from her own audience, having to hide opinions and multiple characters, hiring someone to do her Twitter because
it's not fucking hiding. She makes the videos that way on purpose. And if you're intelligent enough, you can fucking decipher the philosophical points she's making through the characters. It's not hiding. Being a good YouTuber is not hiding behind anything. I don't...
fanboys can lash out at any given moment, and ignoring how the beliefs she holds can have worrying results. But hey, as Contra said in her video,
Again, Rose, please prove to me how trans acceptance causes pedophiles to molest kids. Please, I'm so interested to see the data on that. Like,
maybe
Nothing matters? Nothing matters. Nothing matters. Nothing matters.
okay, is that it? Looks like it. Should I watch her explaining femboys video at some point? Maybe, if I really want to torture myself. If I really want to get the fucking self-torture machine doing. My fucking god. Stalin, you have a video for me? What is it? I'm probably gonna get off soon, guys, to be honest. But it has nothing to do with ContraPoints. Well, what's the video so I can add it? I at least can add it to my to be covered playlist. So much Papega in one video. Yeah. Link the video anyway, Stalin. I want to add it to the playlist. But this was a great stream, guys. Yeah, so that was the Rose of Dawn thing, but